Digitalisation is all about using data and information in digital formats to do new and exciting things. It's about getting more energy, it's about turbines that experience lower loads, how more reliable. It's about making everybody's jobs easier. It's about increasing acceptance. It's a fundamental, foundational thing that's going to really impact how wind energy works over the next 20 to 25 years.
What are the grand challenges?
So the first one is all about the data. It's about getting the data out of organizations or out of the turbines or out of the instruments and getting it into the hands of people who can actually use it. And then the second one is about culture. So it sounds strange as engineers and scientists to think about culture, but we really have to think about how people are empowered to use that data, how organizations work and allow people to innovate around data and around information and come up with new business models. And the third one is really interesting. It's something called co-opetition. It's about working with your closest competitor or working with the entire community, and maybe some of those are your competitors, to build a bigger marketplace, to build a bigger platform so that you can all work together to collaborate on these digital tools and build a sort of digital ecosystem together. It's something that's too big for one group to do on their own, so we all need to be working together to do it.
How do we address these challenges?
Okay, really good question. So the first one around data. We need to be creating frameworks for something called fair data. So that's data that's findable, it's accessible, it's interoperable, and it's reusable. From a researcher perspective, that means things like using data repositories. It means writing code in open formats. It means things like using Python. It means thinking about who is going to use my data, who is going to use my code. From an industry perspective, it might mean things like using APIs, so application programming interfaces, so that we can access each other's data. And again, it almost always means thinking about who is using my data and for what purposes, and having that mindset. In terms of culture, it means things like engaging with DEI, so diversity, equity, inclusion initiatives, and making sure that workforces are not just, for example, as is quite common in research, white males. We need to make sure that the workforce is diverse and inclusive. And we need to make sure that everybody has the skills that they need to be digital, so people need to know how to code and work in data. And the last one, in co-opetition, means that we need to get away from this fear of if I give my data or my information to somebody else, they're going to use that for commercial advantage against me. And we need to be thinking more in a mindset of if I collaborate with people, we can do something great together.
In terms of digitalization, how do we create more innovation?
Encouraging innovation is really, really difficult. But it's not just a problem that we have in wind energy, it's not just a challenge that we faced in wind energy. Everybody faces that challenge. And I think one of the key things that we've learned as a sort of global science-based community is that people have to feel free and encouraged and empowered to innovate. They have to be given the time and the space and the resources to innovate. They have to be told it is okay to go away and try something different. If you're familiar with the startup scene, you might be familiar with the idea of move fast and break things. There's another way of looking at it, which is a safe space to fail. We need to build that kind of environment, those kind of cultures within our businesses, within the wind energy industry. Obviously we can't have wind turbines failing, but we can have ideas that maybe don't hit the mark quite. We need to have employees thinking, yeah, it's okay for me to go away and try something different.
What is Industry 4.0 for wind energy?
Interesting. Okay, so Industry 4.0 is this idea that you use data collected from your customers, from your users about how they use your product, and you feed that back into your products or your systems or your processes to improve the products that you supply to customers. So it's all wrapped up as well with things like agile software development or additive manufacturing. And it's basically, it's moving away from the one-size-fits-all towards mass customization. It's really cool. There's a lot of opportunity there.
How can we get more data to move faster?
I think that's a really good question, but I suspect that's a researcher perspective. I mean, I know, Simon, you're at DTU. You interface with a lot of researchers. You probably hear a lot of researchers demanding data. I think we need to turn that question around, and we need to ask, how can we encourage people to provide data? How can we encourage organizations to free up their data and let other people do it? So maybe instead of just asking somebody for data, maybe I should be paying you for data. Maybe in funding applications we should be including a few euros, a few thousand euros to actually access and buy data. Markets for data, microtransactions. Moving away from this feeling that I give you data and therefore I get an intrinsic reward, I get the warm and fuzzies, and moving towards I get an extrinsic reward. I'm actually rewarded physically, fiscally for providing data.
If you were in an elevator with a powerful politician, what should he do?
I would say digitalization is the thing that's going to allow us to work together to get ever more turbines, more wind energy into the grid, get more reliable power to more people in more places, to spread wind energy into more and more communities where it can be best used, to work well with solar energy, to work well with everything else that we've got on the grid, and to provide the best, the cheapest, most reliable power supply possible.
You've been part of some breakout sessions. What is next step for the Grand Challenge series?
So I've been in the atmospheric science group so far, and what I've seen is a big awareness that atmospheric science, we need to engage with the end users. We really need to make sure that we're not just pushing the technological boundaries, but we're also understanding very clearly how people are using all of the tools, all of the software that we provide, and maybe making the next step in usability, in democratizing our tools. So, for example, some of them need high-performance computing. Can we reduce the computational requirement, or can we help people use cloud systems to use those tools? Can we embed a lot of the experience which is up in people's heads, you know, the 20, 30, 40 years of experience, can we start to embed that in the software so that it's easier to use? That kind of thing. And I think we're starting to see a usability revolution.
What will be the next breakthrough in wind energy science?
The next breakthrough. It might be controversial and say that we tend not to have breakthroughs in wind energy. We tend to have incremental changes for very good reasons, which is that the end users, the customers for the wind energy, particularly for the hardware, tend to be quite conservative for very good reasons. We don't need failures, which is why I think digitalization is actually going to be a really important theme, because that allows you to extract value from your systems without necessarily changing the systems as they are now. You don't touch the hardware, you touch the software. So you increase AEP, annual energy prediction, you reduce loads, you can start improving reliability, you can start thinking about how your operations and maintenance work. And then longer term, as we start to get more confidence with how we're using data, we can start driving the capital expenditure down. We can start taking steel, fiberglass out of these machines, make them lighter, because we better know the real operating conditions and the real loads that they're going to face. And I think that will take a few years, but I think you will see the cost of the turbines themselves coming down, or possibly even better, you will see the manufacturing costs come down, but you will see the purchase costs stay about the same as they are, so that might actually reduce some of the pressures on the OEMs.
Do you think that we can reach this target of 50% renewable energy by 2050?
I don't think we have a choice.
Right.
I think we have to get there.